Thank you for joining Legal Research Strategies and Shortcuts. This particular session is going to provide a really streamlined version of the Six Sigma for paralegals, the paralegal blue belt, which focuses on using the Six Sigma methodology to improve legal research efficiency. So this is kind of like a really drilled down format of that particular program, but it gives you a of the approach that's used within that particular program. The focus, the point, and again, if this is your first course, learning about Six Sigma, you may want to go back and listen to the first session, which kind of gives a more thorough understanding of Six Sigma. But just a brief overview, Six Sigma is just a way to improve efficiency, reduce errors. So in legal researching, it can be greatly utilized in order to improve the efficiency of legal research, because legal research, there's really no blueprint per se of how to research effectively. So this particular session is just going to provide some shortcuts and a drill down format of the approach that's used within the Six Sigma for paralegals, the paralegal blue belt, which is a certification in legal researching. So we're going to specifically go over legal researching from a scientific approach, the components of effective legal research, how to create a plan, the overview of the sources of law, to look in, help to guide you in how to look in the right places for information. And then we're going to go over some legal research checklists, planning and researching, how to create a checklist specific to those particular aspects of the legal research process. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Legal research from a scientific viewpoint. Now, according to Merriam-Webster, scientific is defined as done in an organized way that agrees with the methods and principles of science. So when you're talking about legal research and using a scientific approach, really what it's saying is to create a organized and a consistent method to do legal research so that you're more likely to find the most accurate information in the shortest amount of time. So when you're doing research, because it can be very time consuming, because you're looking for cases or rules that relate to that particular issue, and then you have to actually read them to see if they apply, and if so, which part of the case applies. This would be very time consuming. So you really want to avoid approaching legal research as an artistic expression of your ideals and norms. And what does that mean? That's pretty much saying, because legal research has no really blueprint on how to handle it effectively, everyone pretty much does it differently. And so when you're doing it that way, from a creative aspect of conducting legal research, it can really be really time consuming, and then it really doesn't allow you to come up with a consistent method. Consistency usually creates proficiency after a while. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again that's working, you're going to get really proficient at it. So when you're doing something from artistic or creative aspect, it's pretty much all, lack of a better word, kind of all over the place, because it's just kind of being creative and approaching every research project differently, just based off of maybe the elements that are involved in the case, or what type of source of law you're researching. Or if you're new to legal research, this is helpful because it allows you to come up with a method, if you're new to it, to say, okay, where do I even start? This is giving you a blueprint of where to start when you're researching, to come up with a systematic, an organized, and a consistent method to handle all of your research projects. You want to utilize legal reasoning to guide the legal research path, meaning you want to determine what the elements are, what are the issues that are at play in the case, and guide your legal research based off of that. So legal research is pretty much, it's a story. It's a storyboard, but although it's a story, it has to follow some conventional methods in order to extract truth to support claims. So even though it's a story where, you know, an attorneys came up with a hypothesis, a theory on how something occurred or why this had applied this or whatever the case may be pertaining to a particular case. And your job as a paralegal is to be able to find relevant cases, statutes relate to support that. So the legal research path, you're really just finding, that's all you're doing. You're looking for cases, you're looking for regulations that allow you to take that story and make it true. Which hopefully it is the truth of what, you know, what happened. But sometimes attorneys they're not knowing really all of the facts in a situation or all of what happened, but they have to create a the most likely event that occurred, or how something applied to something else or affected something else. So in that sense, again, it's just trying to find the rules, the regulations to support that truth, to extract the truth, to make that story come alive. Meaning that, okay, the attorney is just stating this. They're stating this information. The jury doesn't know. The judge doesn't know. So the cases are supporting that to say, okay, in this case here, this was the same kind of like fact scenario, and this was the ruling, and so this is how you should rule because of how precedent or other cases have ruled on the same issue. Solid legal research, it minimizes doubt to its smallest part. That's the aim, is to be able to prove, to support the truth, support the storyboard that the attorney has come up with other cases, regulations, and rules. Now really, when you're doing legal research, you want to be effective at it. You're putting a puzzle together. And if you've ever put a puzzle together, you understand that there's really no way that everybody puts a puzzle together. But a good way to approach legal research, because it is a puzzle you're putting together, is to define the issue. What is the issue or issues at play? And then determine various aspects of the issue, like who are the parties are involved? Is it a landlord-tenant? Is it employer-employee? What are the parties involved? What's the relief to be sought? What is the client looking to be sought? Are they looking for an injunctive, meaning they're looking for something to be stopped? Some type of behavior or something to stop? Are they looking for money to compensate for a loss, or money to be able to punish an individual? What are the places and things that are involved in the problem? And from that, you can just create some strong keywords based off of that. Use the search terms like landlord when you're searching. Use keywords related to the relief to be sought, injunctive relief for whatever. Use those terms when doing searches. So when you first start off by defining the issue, it then allows you to drill down to parties or relief to be sought, potential claims and defenses. From there, you want to create some strong keywords, and then you want to determine your research path. Do you know the controlling jurisdiction? Is it a federal court, a federal jurisdiction case? Like you could be dealing with a civil rights issue. That would be a federal in the federal jurisdiction. So you don't want to search for cases in one jurisdiction if the controlling jurisdiction is another state, or in the case where it's a federal case, you want to look for federal cases if it's a federal issue. So jurisdiction is who has authority to hear that particular case. I mentioned, if you listening to the session on legal technology, there was a case at the end about satellite testimony regarding a couple that were from Buenos Aires, but the issue happened in Florida. Well, when you're researching that case, you want to make sure of who actually the controlling jurisdiction would be. Or let's say the situation is involving parties from two different states. You have to determine what the controlling jurisdiction, who has authority to hear the case, so that you can find relevant cases and regulations pertaining to the controlling authority, who has authority to hear that case. And then if you have any relevant citations, if you already know particular cases and you know that citations, you can start there. From there you can shepherdize or key cite, or if you're using a different legal research system, use their system, citation system, to find some cases that are relevant. Now, these are some sources of law, like where you can look for information to support your claim. Now, you'll learn that while doing more study and legal research, if you haven't already noticed, that there's a relationship between branches of government and the legal rules that they create. The Constitution is pretty much, it's federal in nature. It's, that is pretty much going to trump everything. If something is violating the Constitution is going to rule. You have the executive branch of the government, which creates administrative regulations. These are agencies, different, like let's say the Social Security Administration, Veterans Affairs. These are administrative agencies, and they create their own rules. And then you have the legislative branch, which creates statutes. And then you have the judicial branch, like the courts. They create court opinions and case law. So when you're doing your legal research, you want to know this and keep this in mind. So if you're dealing with a Social Security claim, you want to look for administrative regulations related to that, starting there. You're dealing with civil rights claims, you want to start with constitutions and determining what particular amendment was violated. And, again, understanding that the different branches of government create different types of law. With the legislative branch creating statutes or rules that are not related to those administrative agencies. And then you have the judicial branch that creates court opinions and case law. Now, in order to be able to be more efficient with researching, a good thing to start off with is a plan. So you want to obtain some preliminary information about the problem. The manager, the attorney that gave you that assignment, determining, just getting some background information. And you want to write the plan out. And then you want to work effectively as far as keeping notes. Every case that you read or research, write it down. Make some notes on the side of what information you obtained from that particular case. This allows you not to duplicate efforts. If you were researching one day and on one case and then you don't pick it back up to a few days later, you don't want to go based off of memory to determine if you've looked at a case or read it or not, or what information you gleaned from it. If you just look at your notes, you can determine what cases you looked at, what information you obtained from it, so you're not duplicating your efforts. And then stop researching when your research has come full circle. There's so many cases. You have databases, these online databases have hundreds and thousands of just cases and statutes in there, and you can research, your research can go on and on and on, but you have to stop when you found enough information to be able to support the claims, those on point things that hit as close as possible to the issues that are at play in the particular case that you're researching for. And then you want to find help if you need it. If you have too much material, you want to narrow the problem down. And this may require you to go talk to someone in your office to get more background information about your specific case or that particular issue that you're researching. And then these are just some research sources. Again, determining where you want to start. If you don't know really what the issue is and where to start, a good place to start is secondary sources. Secondary sources are things like treatises, encyclopedias. They give more background information. They're not court cases and regulations. They're there to be able to provide more insight onto an issue. So this is a good place to start because a lot of times they will steer you towards primary sources. So that's a good place to start. You want to research with citators if you already have specific cases and citations to that. Starting from there, look at that case, research that case, and then shepherdize KeyCite, or use another citation system if you're in another legal research system to be able to find cases that are relevant. You can do the statutory research search, looking for statutes, federal legislative history research, federal administrative law research. You can do actually subject matter service research if you're in one of these systems like LexisNexis and Westlaw and Lois Law. You can do subject matter research. And then electronic legal research, it's not just isolated to those paid research systems. You can use FindLaw, which is free, and that's the website, is findlaw.com. You can use Google Scholar and be able to find primary and secondary sources. So these are just some tips to be able to guide your research, first starting off with the plan and then knowing where you're going to start at when you do your research. And again, if you don't really know what issues are at play or a lot of background information about that type of case, a great place to start is secondary sources like treatises, journals, and things like that. And you can find a lot of that information online. So, before you go into those paid research systems like Westlaw and LexisNexis, you may either want to start with an unpaid service, or if your company uses a system like Lois Law, which doesn't charge, their fee structure is different, so you can go in there and your firm's not charged all this money, it's just a flat fee. Start there. Start with the free services like Google Scholar and FindLaw to be able to tailor down the issue, and then once you know what that is, then look up the citations or regulations within these particular paid services. That was quick. It's just kind of pretty much a very streamlined version of how to start creating an organized and a consistent method of legal researching. And those are some tips and some shortcuts on how to do that by creating the plan, knowing where to look, the type of sources of law, and making sure that you take effective notes. And those are just some a great way to be able to ensure that your legal research efficiency improves. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Here's contact information down here. By emails, rainmakers@agilityservices.com. By phone, 866-255-7175. So I hope this session was helpful. And if you have any questions, again, reach out.